Hello and welcome to another episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast powered by No. It's Sarah Benkin-Fishi, your host for this amazing podcast. And today I'm going to be introducing you to a brand new friend, a friend of mine and a friend of yours. Her name is Kanika Chadda Gupta. And you know what? She is for all your mamas out there. She's a host of That's Total Mom Sense podcast, former CNN correspondent, turned podcaster. I can't wait for you to get to know her. Enjoy. Welcome to the High Achieving Female Podcast powered by No, where we believe high achieving female leaders deserve to be known. Here, you're going to get the tips, tools, and inspiration you need to network, grow, scale, and balance your business, career, and life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. You are going to meet a dynamic boss mom, y'all. Her name is Kanika Chadda Gupta. She is a CNN television anchor turned podcaster, mom of three. I cannot wait to dig into this. She hosts a very popular podcast. Maybe you've heard of it. That's Total Mom Sense, where she interviews public figures on their life lessons, parenting journey, and legacy. And you know what? You've had some really amazingly dynamic women on your podcast, and I cannot wait to dig in. So Kanika, welcome. Thanks for being a part of this.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Sarah. It's my pleasure.
Okay. So listen, I know that we want to know every single thing about you. We only have 20 to 25 minutes here. So we're going to keep it short and sweet. But tell me, who is Kanika and how in the world did you go from CNN television anchor to podcaster?
Well, I identify myself as the three M's. I'm a media mom of multiples, and I had a very circuitous journey into journalism and podcasting. And it's amazing how life comes full circle. So I was born in India, and my parents immigrated to the US when I was 2. And one thing that was just a mainstay in our household was having the TV on with the news. So, I grew up watching Peter Jennings and Connie Chung and Oprah. And I love the interview format specifically. And so it's no surprise that I went into broadcast journalism when I went to school. And so after I earned my master's, I moved back to India where I was hired by CNN International. And they had me working as a producer first. And within 6 months, I began anchoring the show. And it was called E! Tonight. So very similar to E! News. And so it's kind of heading up the entertainment bureau as head anchor. And it was such a wild ride. I'm so thankful that I had such a culturally immersive experience because I covered everything from the 26/11 terror attacks, where I interviewed survivors after the city was under siege for 3 days, to Slumdog Millionaire at the Oscars. And,
Wow.
was on red carpets and meeting celebrities face to face. So a lot of pinch me moments there.
What a fun life. And I love that this was a full circle moment for you. So you were born in India and you moved here really, really young. Did you spend a lot of time in India, or did you have like a background family still back there? So when you actually moved back or moved to India, did you have a little bit of like a foundation there for yourself?
Yes, I absolutely did. I love that you asked that because, one thing about the culture is everybody is so close knit. And my aunt lives there, and in Hindi, you call her Masi. And that actually means Ma Jessie, or like your mom. So it was like I had a second mom there, and I stayed with her. And, I had all these second and third cousins and family friends. And then I made colleagues and kind of networked my way through the media landscape there. So that was wonderful.
That's incredible too, because you said you started as a producer and then went very, very quickly, which is not common, right? It's not common to go from like behind the camera to front of the camera with such a large, media outlet, right? How in the world did you do that?
Yeah, you know what? I definitely paid my dues, and I showed how committed I was to the network and the programming. And I think that speaks volumes about somebody's work ethic. And so, I put in a lot of late nights and was working as an executive producer, but I had spoken to the bureau chief and said, I'd like to, eventually get on air, but I understand that this is a need and I can wear all that. And so he said, you can still work as a correspondent. It'll just have to be hours in addition to what we have for you as producer. And I was like, okay, I'm on it. And so if I had to work a late night shift, I would go do interviews in the morning. And then if I had to work a morning shift, I would, cover events at night. And I mean, I remember just kind of burning the midnight oil often. I would be in the editing rooms with my editor and like in the control room, uploading my footage at like 2, 3 in the morning sometimes.
My goodness.
Especially after like premieres. Yeah. And it's just the reason why it's so deadline driven is because if you're at like a movie premiere at night, you need to get that footage out ASAP so that it's up the news wheel, definitely playing out for the morning shows the next day. So
wow.
It's always like a race, like which network is going to release like the footage first. So, you're at the premiere, schmoozing, interviewing, it's amazing. And then you're like hauling ass back to the network to get it out and airing. So yeah, I did that. And they saw how I was kind of grinding for a good 6 months. And the opportunity came up that the show that I produced had, the head anchor position available and this other anchor had to go. And so I, auditioned like everybody else. And I think they had like a panel. And so not only the bureau chief, but even just the tech, staff from the editors to the camera personnel, they enjoyed working with me. They saw just hardworking I was. And so I think it was kind of unanimous that they were like, yeah, she's going to kill it in this role. Like she needs to be in this role.
Okay. So I love this because this is a big lesson for our listeners. Anyone who's on the path or like has a big goal, and especially our younger ones who are the up and comers, right? Like put your mind to it, put in the work. Don't be afraid. Dig in where you can. The opportunity will present itself. And look at what happened, right? Like you were like, I'll do whatever. I'll add more. I'll add more hours to the day that are very limited, right? And then, and how amazing was it that you were actually able to seize that opportunity when it was presented? But you had already built in all of those relationships. You had proven yourself as a hard worker, and it was a no-brainer for them. So that's amazing. Congratulations on that. But ladies, when you're listening to this, I want you to think about that. In terms of like your big, hairy goal, your scary goal that you're working towards, like what can you do to move, even if it's just inches or millimeters into the right direction? That is so cool. So you eventually left CNN, you moved back to the States because this is where you are now. You birthed 3 babies, including twins. And now you are the host of the podcast, That's Total Mom Sense. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast because, man, it's pretty cool what you're doing with this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think every entrepreneur's journey, we kind of look for the problem and then the solution to it. And so when I had my 3 kids, I had them in a year and a half, which was just,
yeah. Hello, moms out there. We're like, she's crazy, but you're getting it done all at once. So it's like, it's either like a good thing or a bad thing. And you're just like, in the season.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you roll with it. I had 3 in diapers. I had 3 different colored bottles. Like it was not. But after that, it was during that time that I started listening to podcasts because I didn't have the energy and I was sleep deprived. So I couldn't read all the books. And I was like, I want to learn as much as I can and get as systematic as I can, especially with the twins, like, getting them on a schedule and like, can somebody kind of give me hope for what's next and that light at the end of the tunnel? Because I'm in the thick of it right now and I need that support. And so I found that this space was bereft of a show that I have 4 pillars is informative, insightful, inclusive, and inspiring. And so that's what That's Total Mom Sense is. And one thing that I realized, even though, I was in constant touch with my pediatrician and then there's like family members, nannies, like, child caregivers, whatever it may be, you should always trust your built-in sixth sense. It is your North Star. And so, Mom Sense is just a play on words. This is for dads and really any, caretakers to kids. You have to trust that. And that's what's kind of going to set you on that right path. And so no one can really tell you how to raise your kid. You already know.
Yes.
Yeah, when I impressed that upon them. And yeah, it was Mother's Day of 2019 that I said, I'm going to launch That's Total Mom Sense and be able to be this uplifting resource for everybody who's tuning in so that they're like learning and they're feeling entertained, engaged, and enlightened.
I love this. And so this is no small podcast, ma'am. I mean, you have interviewed some very dynamic women: Chelsea Clinton, Kelly Rowland, Bobbi Brown, Rebecca Minkoff. I mean, really, really amazingly professional, successful moms. And you have garnered over 1 million digital streams last year. I mean, you have a huge listener base and a huge following. Let's talk about your favorite interview, or one of your favorite interviews, because I'm sure you're going to say they're all your favorite. So let's talk about who your top favorite, one of your top favorite interviews was, and let's talk a little bit about like what made it so impactful.
Oh, sure. Okay, so it's really, really hard for me to choose one, but I'll say one that really stuck with me that, she in fact wrote a book on it afterwards called Fearless, is Rebecca Minkoff. She, throughout her life has chosen to be fearless and unapologetic about the decisions that she made. And she talked about a life lesson that made an impression on her. And it really provided her the foundation for what she's doing now. So back when she was just 8 years old, she wanted a dress for like a school event. And her mom and dad actually kept a green ledger in their kitchen. So her and her brother Yuri had allowance and chores, and they had to earn their keep. And so they didn't just get, like clothes or toys whenever they wanted. And so her mom said, no, sweetie, you don't have enough in your allowance for that dress. So what I can do though is take you to a fabric store and teach you how to sew. And so she did that. And it turned out that Rebecca really took to sewing, that she ended up sewing her own wardrobe by the age of 9, that's how fashion design just became her passion,
Wow.
and at such a young age. And it was because her mom kind of stuck to her principles and her values and was like, I know I could just buy this for her. I want to teach her a bigger lesson here. And that went on to shape her livelihood. And that's why she's, the famed designer that she is today. She's been doing this a very long time.
That's so cool. So do you have like countless stories like this with the guests that you brought onto your show? Talk to us a little bit about, the give back component of this. So you're bringing these women in, helping them share their story, but ultimately the goal is to inspire these other moms or listeners, because maybe they're not all moms, but your listeners to what? To keep going, to know that they're not alone, to be inspired by stories and the journey, right? This week's episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast is brought to you by the No Global Membership. It's time. Get in the room to network with women you want and need to know. Link to join the membership is in the show notes below. And don't forget, you can also claim your freebie today.
Yes, all of the above. I think we can learn so much from storytelling, and that's what keeps society together. I feel like the most truest form of human connection is through conversation and exchanging experiences. And so that's what this provides. And I think it's so important to go there and to dig deep, and I did this with all of my guests because we see their outward success, but then there was a struggle behind it. There was something that they had to get over to get there. And so that's what I want the audience to take away is success is never, ever just handed to you. There's going to be challenges and pitfalls and adversity. And that's a good thing because that goes on to shape your character. So each of them have given me nuggets like that. I can share some other, guests that I feel like gave those life lessons that I think will be valuable to,
Yeah. Give us one. Give us a good one.
Yeah, sure. I would say Bobbi Brown said, you should get over yourself and get out there. And she said this at the height of the pandemic when she was actually giving a commencement speech to her youngest son's high school. And so it's funny how this actually applies at any age because, these young kids about to enter the workforce felt like just this impending doom. Like, how are we going to get a job, in 2020? Like, this is like, we're, totally screwed. But if you change your mindset and make sure that you're resourceful and find avenues, whether it's like, going on informational meetings with people and making sure that you find ways that you give back rather than being the one with the ask. There are always people to help you, and you'd be surprised that, the successful thought leaders at the tippy top are actually very, very mindful and generous with their time and mentorship. That's what she had to say for them. And then I think for parents too, we think we're really jaded by what happened with the Great Resignation and just, the recession that's, impending now. There's always going to be these ebbs and flows that we go through in society, but that shouldn't that shouldn't be your reason for not putting yourself out there. So if you have that, business idea, if you have that podcast, topic, if you have, that new job that you see that's on LinkedIn that you're like, I really want to get that, then just go for it. I think just don't be plagued by analysis paralysis and overthinking, and just go for it.
I'm 100% on board with this and believe this fully, right? Like if you have that big idea or you have the goal that the dream that's been like sitting in your heart for your entire life, just do it. Just do it. Yeah. And I talk to so many entrepreneurs about this. Entrepreneurs are known for taking risks. Like that's what we're known for. But let's be honest, they're calculated risks. Like we're not jumping off of a bridge without a parachute or some kind of bungee cord, right? Like that's not what we're doing as entrepreneurs. But we can quickly assess and determine whether it's a fit, not a fit, move left, move right. One of the things I love to say is when you're sitting on the edge of a decision is if you feel, and I use intuition a lot, right, to guide me. And I think that's kind of like what you said, like the mom sense, right? Like we use our intuition, our inside knowing to guide us. And when we are able to really tap into that and if it's a yes, it's a hell yes. Then by God, move forward, right? Like just do. And if it's a no, then it's a no. And if it's a yellow, then it's just, if you're unsure, just wait, right? Wait it out, but don't wait too long. A lot of times what I tell people too is, I like to get it to about 80%. I will get it to 80% and then I launch. And then when I'm launching, I'm in the process of refining. So I think that's great advice. Like don't feel like you have to have it all together because we never have it all together, right? None of us.
Yeah, and life's going to throw you curveballs that everybody's going through sometimes. So
that's so great. Such great advice. So here's what I want to know. I want to know, what is Kanika doing now outside of this podcast? Because the podcast has been such a great passion project and platform for you, but you are doing so many other things outside of just podcasting. So share a little bit about your life and in other areas.
Oh, thank you. Sure. So I feel like I'm really mindful about being an involved mom in my kids' lives. They're really, really young. My twins, Christian and Sahana, just turned 6. And so we celebrated with 3 parties, which they were easy to plan, not like that first birthday, which I think we all go over the top and all Pinteresty, but it was great. I made sure to connect with the other parents because they're in kindergarten. So we had a little painting party for all of their school friends and family friends. And the kids were doing an activity while the parents were in another room, and we actually got to socialize and get to know each other. And I think that was so refreshing because you literally see these fellow parents at drop off or pick up and it's like, hi. And that's the extent of it. But I think it's important to build these bonds because your kids are going to be friends hopefully with this class for the rest of their life. And so they need us to forge bonds with the parents. And then that's why we go on play dates and, kind of really are the foundation for their lifelong friendships. So there was that. And my younger one is 4.5. So he was definitely enjoying seeing even his, school friends there. And I am a mentor to many entrepreneurs. You can book time to consult with me on Mother Honestly. I'm part of their mother board. So it doesn't have to be, parenting related, but oftentimes, those I work with are because they're constantly juggling and they just want to make sure that they are optimizing their time and actually scaling their business and, running it as co-CEOs at home.
Mhm.
So there's that. And then I'm also part of some, volunteer efforts. I work with a foundation called Sundara, and they're a really wonderful nonprofit where we build up female leaders in communities all around the world, in countries in South America, in Africa, and, Southeast Asia. And one of my mentees that I'm working with, she actually worked with an infrastructure and architectural firm to build the first toilet or latrine, if you will, euphemistic to say it that way, in a slum community in Bangalore.
Wow.
And and this is something that is really revolutionary for, that segment of the population. They don't have access. So, I mean, just to think about, how far we've come technology wise, especially in the US, that there are, like billions of people in this world who don't have indoor plumbing and who don't have access to clean water. And so that is something that I worked with her on where they built it out. And there's, 100 people in this, kind of community that are using it now. And the women they don't feel ashamed, especially, every month when we're menstruating and things like that. They had to go through such a struggle. And so now to have that, it's become this life changer. And it was something so simple and it changed, so many lives. So we're looking to build this out in other areas, in like poverty-stricken areas in India.
Wow. And to be a part of that, that is so great. Tell us again what this organization is called again.
Yes, Sundara, Sundara.
Okay, I'm going to include that in the show notes so that if anyone's interested in learning more about this organization, you can feel free to kind of dig into that. That is incredible. What advice would you give to a new mom? I have a couple of really great friends who are expecting, and they're business owners, and they are probably at like a level 9 freak out mode right now because they're thinking like, I don't know like how I'm going to do this. So what advice would you give I'm going to call you like the pro mom, from the pro mom, like what advice would you give to those like new expecting moms that are terrified on how they're going to juggle it all?
Yes. I mean, the only way to tackle a challenge is to, tackle it head on and go through it. You have to move through it, and you will find how resilient you are and how you actually are so guarded with your time more than ever before. Because yes, your baby is going to, take up so much of your time and commitment. And it's this new responsibility that you have this role as parent for life, so it's not going anywhere. But I think you become so mindful. So, I had a schedule made for the twins that I worked on with my baby nurse. And we decided I'm pumping at these times, they're napping at these times. And we stuck to it. And you can actually like condition them to just do things at that time. Like they did things together, that it was like, okay, like on command, I would feel sleepy at the same time. We wore them out and took them for their walk. And, right before that, and got them exposure to the outside and the park and the sun before that. And so that's, how that worked out. And then that was my time to do whatever it is. If you want to do your housework, you can. To sleep also, you can. To work, And so I didn't have time for any BS. And I learned that like, I can say no, and so I knew that, okay, this is something that's important to me. And I was still podcasting, this is when they're a little older, but it's when I launched the show. And I just knew that like, these are my times to record. These are my times to do outreach and work on decks and like, deliberate with my team. And, I was really just like so steadfast on that. And I think that's the best advice that I can give. And there's, of course, like all the products and things things like don't feel inundated that you're like, oh my God, I need to buy all this stuff.
Right.
Don't do that either. Like because I had twins, I was like, I'm going to buy things that are gray and they're going to share.
I love that.
It looks nice at home. And so there's that. So yeah, don't go nuts with that because a lot of times things only last for like 3 months and then they've outgrown it and you don't need it anymore. But there are Facebook communities and websites that have things that you rent. So I think that if you wanted to like rent a snoo or rent maybe, strollers and things like that, just do that because you're, and kind of it's sustainable. And then you're not like left with all the things afterwards because it's just too much clutter.
Yeah, life has changed. So my baby is about to be 14 she would be very upset. About to be 15 next week.
Wow.
So it's been quite a while since I have entered into this journey, but I'll tell you what, they did not have rental opportunities like this then that I was aware of. So what I'm hearing you say is like, ladies, you're strategic in your business life. You're strategic, at work. So be strategic at home too. Give yourself a little bit of grace. But really know that like you can own your schedule. I love that. Sleep training is so, so important, I think. And it's easy just to sort of like let it fall to the wayside and like, and to just go with the flow. But I think if you really do want to get your life in order and be that high performing woman, then, throwing a little strategy and schedule setting is important in all aspects of our lives, right?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. So where can we find you? How do we get connected? How do we listen? All of the things. Give me all of that.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you can find me. Everything's available on my website, and that's totalmomsense.com. And the show, That's Total Mom Sense, same name, is on all the podcast players, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods. And I'm really active on Instagram, so you can follow me there. And that's my name. So my handle is at Kanika Chadda Gupta. And I'll give you my email too, because I love just interaction and it's so important to be transparent. So that's totalmomsense@gmail.com. And feel free to write to me. I'm here for you.
I love that. I love it when our women are accessible. And ladies, if you're a member in No, she is also a member of No, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of her around our world. So I'm so excited about that. Kanika, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. Go follow her, subscribe to the podcast, give it a review, do all the things that we're supposed to do, and write her an email and tell her who your favorite interview was.
Ooh, I love that. Oh,
yeah, look, I love a good call to action. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for being, Kanika, thank you so much for being a part of this. Ladies, thank you so much for listening. Until next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast, powered by No, where we believe it's time for high achieving women like you to be seen, heard, and recognized. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be known.